folks? Mil-Spec Opsmug here. This is going to be your sit rep for 12/8/2021. It's about 4 o'clock p.m. Here's Central Time from the great state of Texas. And so without further ado, let's hop over here to the board and start taking a look at what's going on in the skies. Kicking it off over here in Sky Glass. And you can see we got a couple aircraft out off the west coast. We're going to touch on that here in just a little bit, but I don't know what kind of aircraft they are. They're flying under NA. Both of them are at 20,000 feet. And I would imagine it's tied to maybe some of that earthquake activity over here. And we'll, again, take a closer look at that in just a minute. We've had some activity early this morning down off of, from actually Cape Canaveral all the way down to Miami with P8s and P3s. Just to give you guys a little bit, those are sub hunters. And they were quite busy early this morning. And they have since just basically landed and not doing too much. But they were definitely looking at some stuff down there. And then, of course, off the East Coast earlier today as well, which we continue to see now, in the Jersey kind of off the Jersey shore there, a lot of air refuelers that were up, which is something we're starting to see kind of regularly. And this could be tied to, as we talk about Club Ks and things of that nature, it could be tied to looking for that. Kind of unknown, but let's get a quick count here over here on our list, and we're going to see where we're stacking up. And then we may just, let me get this alphabetized for us. And so the NAs are basically the main ones that are up right now. You guys can see 35 of those bad dudes up across the U.S. Now that doesn't mean really much. They're not blocked or anything like that. It could just be a lazy pilot doesn't want to put in his call sign or anything else for that matter. So that's okay. We do have one B-52 that's out. It looks like in Nevada, probably tied to some red flags. And C-130s, we've got 13 of those bad dudes that are up. Let me do this. I'm going to take our lines off. Kind of spread all the way across the U.S. Nothing really over the top. We do have 10 tankers. And again, most of that concentration is off the East Coast. Typically when you see tankers, that's a good indication that we've got some fighters up. And those dudes are up, you know, putting gas in them. So let me see here from a C-130, C-17. Let's just back these air refuelers out for a minute, and we're going to take a look and see how many of those we have up across the U.S. Now let me pull this down, and you can see that again, that's a pretty high number. Looking, you know, at the total quantity that's, you know, as from the sum perspective, that's pretty high. So. Okay, now I'm going to back out of this. We're going to jump over to our normal stuff real fast, and that would be talking about Flashbang and all of his activities. Again, this area congestion-wise is, that's all trainers that are in there, with the exception of that E3 Sentry right there. And we got some Ronins that are up. Those are going to be some of your spy craft, those B-350s. And I did see Gray 22 that was up as well. Not uncommon for them to be spying on us. And again, these are tankers over Florida. And then these little 737's been rolling out. This one's coming out of the Baton Rouge area, headed out over the Atlantic. And then this is an air refueler that's out here as well. Okay, let's bounce over here real fast. We're going to look at Flashbang's schedule here in just a second. This is the volcanic activity. Now I'm going to tie in just a minute. We're actually going to take a closer look at these earthquakes on the weather radar as that's where I saw it. Now I know Dutch Sense is the go-to for earthquake stuff, but I'm just going to point it out. If you want to listen to him, that is definitely the go-to guy for that. All right. But it looks like we've got about 7 active volcanoes all the way down the east, kind of, well, from Central America down to South America, like we normally see. 6 of those going, and then we got La Palma still firing. Nothing around the other side of the Ring of Fire, which is pretty unusual. We typically see something going there. But if we get over here to our map, you guys will see. Now let me just break this out. Now this, if you click on it, this is kind of staggering. these are earthquakes that are going on out here by the Cascadian, I guess the fault line there. Typically when you see a swarm, you don't see them in the 5 magnitude range. These are shallow, I think about 10 kilometers down. But again, it is just a ton of them, all 5 pluses, a couple 4 6s and 4 7s there at the bottom, but pretty, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. Pretty uncommon to see that go in swarms. So again, Dutch Sense is probably covering that stuff. These orange boxes are storms. This right here is going to be a VIP TFR over Kansas City, Missouri. I imagine flashbangs headed that general direction. We got a space one out here in kind of the Texas corner there near El Paso, and then space operations over Florida, and then a lot of weather moving off the coast there. So let me back this out, and then let's get rid of flashbang schedule. All right, so this is going to be his hump day schedule, and looks like, yeah, he's headed to Kansas City right here. Going to remark on whatever, nothing important really. All right, but just confirms the TFR for that location. All right, looking over here at marine traffic, get into the LA area. We always just kind of bump into this to see these with the arrows are moving. The dots are sitting still. Again, this is the Port of Los Angeles, and you can see it is still pretty heavily congested. I don't see that actually changing much at all. So I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't look like they're doing much, right? Now, this looking at this and seeing the fighters that are off the East Coast and the Jersey area, and then looking at these, makes you kind of wonder. I just saw this write up yesterday. Remember, we've talked about the Club Ks. There is now a fear that these hidden missiles in shipping containers are going to be a Trojan horse style launch attack anywhere in the world, right? And we've talked about these before, but for those not familiar, I'm just going to bump this in. I got the sound off of it so I can talk to it while we're doing this, but this is a sea container, and you can see it's not an ordinary one. It actually pops up and contains a missile system, and it can fire either conventional, nuclear, biological, chemical, as well as just regular old, conventional type of stuff. But it's a cruise missile, and you can see you can throw that on a rail car, you can throw it in a small boat, you can put them on big cargo ships, but you can park those bad dudes right off the shore, like they do here. Any one of those could be a hidden, basically Trojan horse with a strike capability. It'd be no different than having a nuclear submarine parked right off your shore, right? So launches within just a couple minutes, and the strike is now a lot closer. So that is kind of the concern. All right, now let's get over here to Biggs Army Airfield, see what we've got going on today. We did have a national cargo bird show up from Orlando. It's a 757-200. That's the only thing that's really on the board. Now, we did have a couple that came in the other day. This is going to be on Tuesday, which was another Southwest airline. So it looks like Southwest is kind of getting back into the mix. And not a shocker, but from there, let's see where they went to. Let me go over here to departures, and we're going to see where they took, and these are usually poppies. Just FYI. So on Tuesday, we had 2 Southwest. One went to Boston. One went to Colorado Springs. The other one was on Monday. We talked about that one already. Now, this one that arrived today actually came in from Orlando, and I don't think it is on the board yet for departing. Let's get over to the main board just to see in general if we've got it over here. I'm not seeing it. Here it is down on the bottom. So we do have the SPA 709 coming back in from Tucson. We'll see where that goes. And yeah, coming in from Boise, Idaho. So not seeing where this one is got a departure yet. That may fly out tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye on it. But Biggs continues to be kind of one of the main grounds other than McGuire and Fort Dix in terms of where they're parking these Afghanis and some of the others. So We talked a little bit about this in our last sit rep. These are actually locations where they're known immigration camps on military installations. Got a couple that are kind of double stacked up here. You got Fort Dix and McGuire, and then same thing, you know, out here in this general area, we've got Holloman, and then you've got Biggs, which is just right down a little ways south of there, and of course the Tent City as well. So, all right. Now on that, let's talk a little bit about our southern border. And actually, let me before I get ahead of myself, this is the write-up that talked about McGuire, Dix, and Lakehurst, 3 locations that we know they're bringing poppies in. They're saying now that this place is like it's overrun with Afghan refugees, and it says it's now larger than half the towns in New Jersey in terms of the amount of Afghanis that are in there. And that was published on the 7th of December. So that confirms, I mean, we've got the flights going in and out. We see them. Now, this one is what got my attention and part of the thumbnail for today. According to Customs and Border Patrol, this is on AmericanMilitaryNews.com, an article was written about 4,100 Russians being arrested trying to illegally enter the U.S. from Mexico this year alone. So that is a pretty big concern, especially given the fact that we're bringing these people onto our bases, military bases. That's you know, just like opening the door, letting the enemy in. This is pretty crazy, but I was kind of shocked when I saw that, and that's what we've caught. So right now they're saying, let's see, they're among 1.7 million people in the U.S. that came into our country this year, but 4,100 is what we've captured. So there's probably, that's probably 10% of what's come actually across the border. So that ought to alarm everybody. All right. Now we were talking about McGuire and Dix at Lakehurst, Fort Dix. And then this is actually Air Transport International came in. This is an arrival from Baltimore. That probably brought some poppies in. And then of course, we did have a Reach that came in, but that was probably just a standard flight. But this one is one we got to kind of keep an eye on because they're continuing to stack them up. Now, like I said in my last sit rep, there are reports where the Marines are actually being called to go up and basically, you know, manage one of these camps in Virginia due to the amount that they're expecting to come in, which would be wave number 3. Okay. Okay. Now we get over here to some of the Swift Air flights. This one's scheduled. Just want to show you where it's headed. It's going from Harlingen, Texas, up to Champaign, Illinois. All right, that's on the docket here. What time is that one leaving? 4:15 p.m. Okay, but you can see it today, just today alone, it took a flight down to Valley to Guatemala, and then it came back from Guatemala back to Valley. Again, Valley is Harlingen. That's a border town. More than likely, it's taking folks out of the country down to Guatemala. But when you see it go from the Valley up to Chicago, it kind of makes you wonder, right? More than likely, they're bringing some folks into the country. So it seems to be some type of a weird selection process that they bring them in, and then they also have some that are going back out. Now, this is going to be your iAero flights for today, Swift Air. You can see currently on the board, you have one coming up from Guatemala to Phoenix. We do have one rolling out of Lubbock, headed to Buffalo, San Antonio over to Denver. So those are more than likely here at San Antonio, more than likely taking some folks, giving them a new home there in Denver. Okay. Now, if we look at the Swift Air flights for this morning, let me get over here and just show you what the board looked like early on. You can see Texas border, Laredo headed down to Mexico, Valley to Guatemala. We looked at that one. San Antonio to Birmingham. All right. So some of these don't make a lot of sense for deporting. I really don't think they're going up into, say, Cincinnati, for example, and picking up poppies and bringing, or you know, bananas for that matter, and bringing them back and shipping them out of the country. It seems like a lot of the outbound flights are taking place in, you know, from the border town, you know, Valley or McAllen, etc. All right. So this is going to be Sierra Pacific 709, currently en route. Looks like it's headed Boise down to Fort Bliss, Texas. Now we're looking at that again. These are 708 and 709 are the two that we've been following closely. I'm sure they have more aircraft than that, but those are the ones that we've been catching. And then if we get over here to Guantanamo Bay, just kind of see what's been going on there. Now, nothing really on the board for today, but I will tell you there is some activity happening there right now. My understanding is that they want media to basically to do dial-ins versus boots on the ground, probably because they don't want them seeing what's going on around the area. And my understanding is they want to maintain that until mid-February 15th, okay? Now, if we look at some of the aircraft, this one here was N626CT. Just to get a better look at that aircraft, that is, you can see a beautiful little citation. High dollar plane right there. And so that one rolled into the spa yesterday, which is an out of sequence bird. And then from there, it went up to St. Augustine. Now, what's interesting is it came out of Boca Raton to Guantanamo Bay. Don't see a lot of those. Now, my personal feeling is that, when you got a citation rolling in, to rent those things by the hour is very expensive. So an attorney would probably have some type of client on the island that they are representing, and they're just billing them this because you're not going to get too many attorneys that own, a citation. Those are high dollar planes. To fly one of those by the hour runs at a minimum about $3,500, but they go upwards of, I've seen them, almost $10,000 an hour. So it really depends. But you just, my feel is that it's either a government using your dollars to do it, or it's an attorney spending somebody else's money to get there to represent a client. Okay. So if it's a high target, it's the government. It would make sense. This is kind of what we expect them to do and what we would see. But it's owned by Grand Teton Aviation, LLC. All right. Another one of our birds, it's a 773RB, rolling out of Guantanamo Bay to Fort Lauderdale. That was Tuesday. That was yesterday, actually, in the morning. That is a normal Tuesday, Friday flight. We'll see another one go in on Friday. The other one, however, was not. And of course, last Friday, we saw these same flights where you had multiple legs. I think there were 2 flights in and out. So there's definitely some trials going on there that they don't want to send. They're going to be classified. But there's that. Now, this one's owned and operated by TTA Logistics, LLC. And of course, you can see it is flying into the same areas as our other handful of, support aircraft going in and out of Guantanamo Bay. All kind of have the same profile, same size, same, fuel capacity, same loads. This is, again, Opelika, right? This is one of them. But they're all kind of going between Opelika, Fort Lauderdale, and now Naples. So we'll continue to watch them. All right, now N173PA, we don't see this one fly very often. Landed 22 hours ago, but it was down in Venezuela, went back to Puerto Rico. This is what we call the Graybirds. It's operated by Phoenix Air. And let me see if it went anywhere else. Puerto Rico down, so it was a round trip down from Puerto Rico to Venezuela. Now that could have very well been taking somebody out of the country. So mentioned before, Puerto Rico is a prison location. And so we see a lot of flights go in and out of that spot too. Okay. All right, C202. This is going to be one of your Homeland Security guys. Currently flying, just took off out of Los Angeles. We kind of watched them just because it gives us a bead on what's going on. Again, they were just down in Guantanamo Bay this past week around Thanksgiving. They did multiple trips back and forth, actually 2 trips. Plus we had C101 that also went down there. So right now, let's see, yesterday or day before yesterday it was in San Francisco, and now it looks like it's headed out of Los Angeles northbound, probably back up to that same area. It's at 36,000 feet, 475 miles an hour. So it is in cruise mode. All right, Department of No Justice. Now, we've been watching these folks. Seems to be a lot of activity going on down here in Brunswick. Originally, I had someone reach out that actually worked for Gulfstream that said they've got a facility in Gulfstream and that they thought maybe they were going down for maintenance. However, and I say that because the other C101, C202 are Gulfstreams. However, this plane is not a Gulfstream. This is actually a de Havilland DH-8, so it's a Dash 8 400, which is a twin-engine turboprop. So for that to be there kind of shoots the theory out from a maintenance perspective. And, you know, we've seen a lot of other activity. We've actually even seen some of the Sierra Pacific birds fly in there. Now, the Sierra Pacifics, I know they use those, U.S. Marshal Service, Department of Prisons, they charter those as well. So typically you can't track those flights. So, you know, there could be something related to that. More than likely there is. And, all right. Now, we move on to aircraft of interest. This one is our sniffer. We've been seeing it do a lot of work in the Philadelphia area. And yesterday, it actually rolled back down to the brown zone. So it is now back to where it usually parks. Very uncommon to see it up here. It's been up here for weeks. I don't know if they found anything. It seemed to pop in around the time they had that whole smallpox scare. And but now it's back in the brown zone. So we watched that one as always. And then this one I popped on. This is actually a NATO flight. I just want to point out it is a Sentry, which is an E3 Sentry over Germany. And the reason I'm pointing this out is if you notice the round, perfectly round circle that is playing middleman, those are capturing cell tower data. So if you're in Germany, not only do you have the Guardian Angels flying overhead at about anywhere from 60 to 80,000 feet, which I'm talking about the balloons that are gathering data, but you also have NATO in your country. And this right here is quintessential. When they hit that, you can see they maintain a certain altitude. They hit that spin cycle, and that's when they become, and it's, you can tell because it is a perfectly round, like they locked in on it as a fixed object so that they become the cell tower. So there's NATO jumping in on the spying business. And then this one, we've been talking a lot about Lakehurst and Dix, and for a while actually, and this is actually one of the spy birds. This is an Army Dash 8 that runs these little shoestrings around that general area. They come up there all the time. They're not out of Lakehurst, they're out of DC. But given what we know now about the poppies being there in large amounts, it kind of makes more sense that they would actually be running routes up there and gathering data. The other interesting thing is we did see it before the poppies had come over, but as we find out from a research perspective, the poppies have been coming over long before we had this whole chaos in Afghanistan. They were already given special visas to come over. That I know for a fact took place about 30 days before the whole Afghanistan thing. So, okay. Now, this one is a Loma. This is out in Fort Bliss at Biggs Army Airfield. This is, you can see, let me roll the screen up a little higher. That's Biggs Army Airfield right here. They're out there running these routes. Now, again, this is a spy bird, and it is the same thing, Dash 8, run by the Army. When they're out there doing that kind of thing, they're definitely grabbing some data. Not the perfect circles that we'd expect to see. Typically on the data grabs, they maintain a pattern. In this case, it looks to just be a little raw, but they are definitely out there looking for stuff, okay? All right, so let me see. Let me get back over here to our other board, and all right, back to the exchange. If we got a white screen, so if you notice, this dog just loves to be held, and if I didn't pick her up, she'd be barking at me. I brought her in because every time I go live, you know, this is about the time when, you know, the UPS guys and Amazon, everybody else show up. So, all right. Now, back over to this, you can see we've got, looks like heavy down here in, that's probably Columbia general area. And then let's see what we've got going on in Mexico. This I'm really interested in, especially this one here that looks to be headed out toward Tercera. Looks like we got a little reach heading across a drink. Of course, that's a tanker, so that's probably the KC part that's probably doing cargo. Carrying. We do have a little bit of a soiree going on up here in the Pacific Northwest. And nah, not seeing anything else that kind of catches my eye. It's kind of a 300 day, which is 280, I think is what we're showing up right now, 285. Not over the top busy, but not seeing anything other than the activity off the East Coast that continues to go on. Again, fighters up, and that would make sense if they're looking for, you know, Club Ks, especially in this general area. You know, if you were going to do it, this would be the area you'd probably want to park a cargo ship. So if we get over here onto our cargo, and you can see the amount of cargo ships that are off our coast. It's pretty staggering, especially up here. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to park something off of this coast, it wouldn't be hard to do, really. So that may be why we have the fighters up, for sure. Then, of course, you get the P-8 activity down in this area, because we do know that the Soviets and the Chinese like to pass submarines through this little area and get out here into the Gulf of Mexico undetected. So, okay, so listen, that is going to do it for today on our sit rep. We'll be back on Friday. Again, if you want to see these live over on Patreon, it's you just go to patreon.com and Monkey Werx US. It's about $3 a month, and so you can join in on the chats and the live shows. So that's it. You guys be safe out there. God bless. Monkey out.
Check out the latest gear and products at monkeywerxus.com.